Hello, David. Welcome.
Hi, sorry, I was on mute.
No, you're good. Once we get rolling, we'll have everyone mute, but nice to see everyone here. I think between Steve and I and Sheila and a bunch of other people, we actually know pretty much all of you by name, so kind of cool.
I guess for me, it's a blessing and a curse, right, Steve?
I was just gonna laugh. We're all good here for sure.
Except for those cowboy signs behind you.
Oof, that's just a painful reminder at this point. It is what it is. You gotta have to take it as I've been a fan for so long. It's like, yeah, what's the big deal? Always next year to enjoy a few games and see what happens.
Absolutely.
Kind of way, kind of like, I drove to New Orleans and went to the Sugar Bowl. That was a little disheartening as well.
Well, you had to drive that far, especially. So,
Yeah, yeah, on Louisiana highways is not good, that's for sure.
I grew up on the Louisiana border of Texas, so I know how it looks from the midpoint on.
It's crazy. I'm telling you that they had so much construction. It took us over 2 hours to get through Baton Rouge.
Well, well,
Uh,
that's always the case with that bridge.
yeah, they don't have many options to when they're working on it. You got the option is to sit and wait or maybe go way north and cut back down, I guess. But it's hard to get through those swamps, I think.
Oh, yeah. So just for curiosity, are y'all recording the meeting coming up?
Yeah,
Yes.
this session is going to be recorded.
Okay.
And all owners that weren't able to join, or if you're co-owners with someone who couldn't make it, it'll be sent out to everybody later in the month. So you can share it and review and go back.
Right.
David, are you here in Port A or are you at home?
I'm at home in New Braunfels.
I guess it's warmed up a little bit there too.
It's it's up to I think 38 right now. It was 15.
Ah, I don't know what we're gonna do. It seems like this has become the norm even down here. I mean,
Yeah,
25 degrees, and luckily, I think to this point, I think there was only 5 or 6 different pipes that broke. So,
it's not bad.
no, that's not horrible, but it's just that these builders down here, they do not like to cover up the pipes like they do, north of here, and so
Yeah,
it really makes it a challenge, especially with all these outdoor showers that they just kind of put the piping on the outside and say, "Here we go." And
yeah.
you know,
We've had good luck with the freeze misers
yep,
uh, last 2 years. I mean, it's been 12 degrees. It's been as low as 12, and
yep,
we've had no issues since using the freeze misers.
sure, that's good. I mean, there's only so much you can do. It's it's a challenge down here when we hit 25 for 6, 7, 8 hours because, and then the plants. I think that's the most painful part is to go back and go, gosh, I just bought those plants last year, and now you got to do it again. If you can cover up a bunch of them, but some of them we didn't, so
Those-
not fun. So Josh, you about ready to we can
Yep, we
kick
got
kick?
got a few more people rolling in now that it's
Okay,
two, but we'll give it maybe a couple more minutes
okay.
and then we can start. See Amber there.
She's not driving. I can see she's riding.
Unless she's in a Tesla and it drives itself.
unless it's in
No,
Chicago.
Tesla. And I'm not driving.
Unless it's a Chicago Tesla.
So
They're
it's a
not-
Waymo.
Oh, Waymo, yeah.
Waymo.
A couple more minutes. We got some people rolling in. Michael. Hey, Michael, how's it going? And like I mentioned earlier, everyone, if they could just stay muted for the whole session, and then any questions that are needed to, if y'all have anything that pop up in your that comes up during the call, just you can just email it over or call or whatever the normal is. We won't do it on call just because that might take a little long, but and this session is going to be recorded, so later in the month we'll be sending out something to all owners. So if you're co-owners with someone or need to share it, it'll be sent out.
We can also share it on Facebook
Yeah.
as well. So we'll do that in the LIP owners group. Well, why don't we get started, Josh?
Good deal. Well,
Okay, let me first, I'll introduce, I know most everybody, but I'm Steve DeWitt. I'm the owner here at Life in Paradise. Josh has spent a lot of time understanding revenue marketing, and so we've attended a number of conferences, this year, and part of our duties as a property manager is to make sure that we understand the market and understand what pricing should be and try to do as much as we can to generate revenue for our owners. I mean, that's what the name of the game is. And so obviously the group that's on the call today and the ones that'll be on this later this week are owners that are interested in understanding a little more of what we do. And I think sometimes it's thought that we just take a dartboard and throw a few darts at the dartboard and say, well, that's the right price. But there's a lot that goes into it. And Josh has spent a lot of time understanding the revenue management of what's going on. And the other important part I think that's is kind of missed is the fact that as a local company that's been here in Port A since the mid 80s, we have a pretty good understanding of the market. Not that we know everything, I'll promise you that. I wished we did. It does take a little bit of a crystal ball to make sure that we get as many bookings at the highest rates we can. And both myself and Josh, we're looking at every booking pretty much that comes in. There's usually 40, 50 bookings a day, and we're looking at each one of them just to kind of see where they're at, what's going on in the market. But Josh is going to talk a lot about revenue management and how we approach revenue management. I mean, it's easy to get kind of overwhelmed and have a little bit of a kind of affection for rates because you think we should be getting this rate, but at the end of the day, I think it's the marketing and it's the market that drives the rates to what they need to be on a given particular time and frame during the year. We watch now, and y'all see some of the postings if you're following us on the Life in Paradise Facebook owners page, that we take a look at what's going on with 1,650 other properties in Port Aransas. So it gives us a good sampling to see where we're at. We definitely don't want to be the highest occupancy all the time, but we don't want to be the lowest, and we want to make sure we're getting the average daily rates up there. So we look at all that stuff constantly. We measure it for 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, location close to the beach. So there's a lot of things that go into it. And I think being a local company, and that's kind of important nowadays, it looks like there's a big sampling of national companies that are coming in here buying out some of the locals. But this company here, we're there's not a chance that we sell out. It's going to be a family business, and we got a good team of people like Josh and Sheila and Brenda and all the groups that we have. And so we're still going to be a family-owned business in Port A, and we're not branching out to do other parts of the country or anything like that. But anyway, I just wanted to jump in and say hello, and we appreciate you attending it, and I will turn it over to Josh and let him kind of discuss some of the things we do.
Good deal. Well, welcome everybody. This is the first annual 2024 LIP State of the Market Address. I'm the opposite of a presenter by stretch of the imagination. So if things get a little nerdy, or if I seem a little introverted, that's why. But I appreciate y'all being here. And as Steve mentioned, we know a lot of y'all by first name pretty much, and knowing my phone, I have over 300 contacts of just strictly owners. So thank y'all for being here, and again, taking the time to kind of understand how everything and all this works. You hear a lot of people talk about dynamic pricing, but no one really actually shows you, hey, this is how everything works. This is the intricacies of it. This is what we see. This is the data we pull. This is what's going on. And really, like Steve said, we're not right all the time, but we do dive into a lot of data. We look at all bookings every single day for every single house. There's not a single one that we don't look at. And we really try to understand what's going on. So I'm just going to share my screen, and we'll start with a couple things. I kind of have a guideline on how I want to go through it. We're going to start with just some of the, I guess, US data. I attended a conference in Nashville. It's called DARM. It's the Data and Revenue Management Conference that they have annually. And they go over basically what the US sees as far as data, bookings, revenue, kind of just a pulse on the overall situation across the board. So markets like Florida, Carolinas, obviously South Texas, really all those markets, they go into some pretty good stuff. I kind of got some of the bullet points from that conference that they talked about. But some of the things they mentioned as far as vacation rentals go is we did underperform 2022 and 21 kind of numbers overall. And that's the United States. This is not just Port Aransas. This is the entire United States we're talking about. The entire market underperformed 2022 and 21 in terms of actual revenue. We were about 10% above 2019 as a country overall, but we were definitely down in 22 and 21. And a lot of people, I'm sure, noticed that. And rates are softening. They're going to be higher than 2019, but they did soften last year. We saw that across the board. Occupancy was also down a little bit. But reservations, they kind of leveled out with new ones. There's still new people coming into these markets looking to vacation, but they're more price minded. They're looking for a good deal, with inflation and all the stuff that's maybe affecting them. They're a little more sensitive to cost, and so where they'd pay, gladly, premium rates for a lot of these homes down here, they're just kind of being a little more cautious when they book. And that kind of tied into last minute bookings, booking windows. And for those who don't know, a booking window is basically the, prime period of time that certain dates will get booked. We saw booking windows shorten. So like, for example, summer, we used to sell out well in advance of 60, 90 days for a lot of the, larger homes. We saw that shorten, got down to 30 days in. A lot of stuff was coming in last minute. People were booking stuff, just waiting to see if prices would come down, if they could get, a better deal, stuff like that. So this first slide here, and if anyone can't see this, feel free to shoot a message, or if I sound a little funny, just message me. But this is kind of across the board what the region saw. You'll see right there kind of our market, really southwest, 56%. Calendar occupancy overall down about 2%, but pretty much every market except for Mid-Atlantic looks like, and then New England, some of the Rockies, they were a little bit up, but there was definitely a decrease. And again, this is just overall. We're going to go over some Port Aransas specific data later, but this is kind of occupancy across the board. Over here is average daily rates, kind of where they've fallen. So everyone's down, whether it's 1% all the way down to 8%. Every single region is down as far as what they're getting average per night. And again, this ties back to consumers being more cautious. Also, another thing to mention too is European travel. I'm sure a lot of people have heard, and maybe y'all have also done it too, but a lot of people are opting to go to Europe for their trips. And 2023, we saw a big increase of that. One number floating around at the conference was about upwards of 35% higher traffic to, Europe and those places. People just saw that they could get, pretty much what they were paying for to go to, Port Aransas or Florida or the Carolinas. They could go to Europe for the same price, maybe even a little bit cheaper, just because they were getting so competitive some of the places. So across the board, the U.S. did see a decline. In our particular market, the Southwest, about a drop of 4% overall. RevPAR, and that's just revenue per available room, is what that stands for. As you can see, a little bit larger drop, particularly in the Southwest, Southeast, and Western markets, a little bit in the Hawaii, upwards of 23%. It looks like the only region that saw growth was Mid-Atlantic, which was about 3% growth in actual revenue per available room, but everyone saw a pretty big decrease in this number. And then this is net reservations per property available. And so what Key Data does, kind of a background on them, is they do have a pool of property managers they partner with. Those property managers, like an example for us, we use Streamline. It's property management software. We load all our listings into their database, and then they have all the booking data for them. That's kind of what a lot of the people who join Key Data, which it's a pretty good chunk of the United States that are in them, they use this, and it's a pretty good metric. So you see 23, 22, 21, 2019. This is obviously us right now. You can kind of see where we were at week by week throughout the year. Definitely in the early part of the year, we were low across the board everywhere, and that kind of leveled off right here. I think a lot of the beach destinations and stuff kind of help tick this number up, just because this is getting into summer warm weather, and then it kind of flattens back off. But definitely, like we saw in April and May, a lot of people saw a softer kind of Q2 of the year. And then this is room rates across the board right here. And let me just move this because I can't see the left side. Okay, and this is the average daily rates. There's RevPAR again, but average daily rate across the board, just one more time, kind of showed a little bit more linear. There's 23 right there, kind of below 22, but definitely above 2019 levels. But you can kind of see where everything was at across the board. And basically, this just shows everyone was down for the most part. Kind of going back to this slide right here, you can see it just corresponds to what they were saying there. And here's another graph showing the last 6 months. And at the time, this was in December. And so this is showing the last 6 months from December of last year. So we can see where 23 was, still definitely below 22 and 21, and then ahead of 2019, naturally.
Hey, Josh.
Yes.
Jane Salga, I want to ask a quick question. Would these trends in this data look differently if we analyze the luxury rental market versus the total rental market? And do you have any insights on that?
They definitely would. I don't have data, and they don't have data diving into those kind of specifics. But they did mention at the conference, the kind of luxury, more expensive houses did see a decline. And in another slide that I'm going to show y'all for our market, at least, I can kind of dive into actual bedrooms, at least for us. But for the United States, they don't have data on specifically like, cabins or, more higher end premium properties. They didn't have data for that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. And then this is United States booking activity. So you can see kind of where the length of stays are. Not much change overall, really. As far as length of stay, again, this is overall United States, but booking windows did shorten up to even lower than 2019 levels. A lot of people were booking shorter stays. For us, at least, I know we saw a lot of 3-night stays rather than, the 4 and 5 nights that we normally get in the summertime, especially for the larger homes. But there's some of that data there. And now I'm going to get into kind of our market in terms of occupancy and ADRs. So for anyone who owns a 1-bedroom, This is kind of where we were at, and this is comparing 23 to 22. And this is obviously occupancy. Blue line is us. The orange line is going to be the rest of the market. So about 2,600 or so other properties in this market. The dotted line is going to be 22. The solid line is going to be 23. And so obviously occupancy, it was down for 1-bedrooms, kind of pulled ahead of the city, just very barely in summertime, but kind of leveled off here. But there's occupancy for 1s. If anyone needs to look at that real quick. All right, and then here's 2-bedrooms. Kind of the same thing. It starts to tighten up a little bit. And then here's 3-bedrooms. Again, starts to tighten up really well. And then the next 2 slides are 4 and 5-bedrooms. And going back to what Janie said, this is going to be the larger homes, the more expensive homes. This is kind of where we saw the largest, I guess, decrease in occupancy. So you can see the delta between last 22 and 23 is pretty significant there, and that's across the board. And this really, and I'm going to go into it at the final slide, this really has a lot to do with the average daily rates that we were getting. So for summer, we were still ahead of the city, but we were behind what we did in 22 compared to 23 for 4-bedrooms. And then there's 5-bedrooms pulled ahead first part. Second part of summer definitely fell behind in occupancy. And going back to all the slides here, the main contributing factor to occupancy being down is going to be ADRs. So overall for us, and this is an interesting graph to look at, ADRs, we were above pretty much all year long. And again, ADR is average daily rates. So average per night overall, we were getting more per night. But going back to the other slides, that translated into less occupancy. And the city, they actually fell behind what they did in 22. So we were ahead of what we did in 22. They were behind what they did in 22. And that's really kind of where we're working on and kind of looking forward to 24. And this is going to go into some of the later stuff we're going to talk to about pricing and the software about how it works. We're really needing to get more aggressive with rates just to get occupancy. So here's this graph right here. Just anyone needs to take a look at that real quick one more time. And then, all right, so there's that. And I'm going to go into, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to go into Wheelhouse real quick. Let me see.
While Josh has jumped in there, I think it's important that we understand that one of the things we were hoping for last year was to raise the ADRs, but I think we did lose sight of the fact that we weren't getting quite the occupancy and stuck too long towards holding on to better average daily rates. And so this year we're utilizing this new software that we think it will help us have better insights to making sure our balance between occupancy and average daily rate is more balanced. Because at the end of the day, we want to get as much occupancy, but as high of average daily rate. And we really don't want one to outweigh the other one more than whether it's average daily rates or if it's occupancy.
Yeah, it's all a balance. So let me go back to Wheelhouse. There we go. All right. Can you see Wheelhouse, Steve? Okay. So this is, for everyone that doesn't know, this is Wheelhouse. This is our pricing program. We moved to these people about a month ago. It was mid to late December when we moved over. It's a really good piece of software. And this is what I'm really excited to show y'all, just because it's kind of it's really a look at what the pricing tool is we use, kind of how it works. Just the little details on that. So I'm just going to go to a unit here. I'm just going to take one of Steve's units real quick. And we can just kind of go over how it works and kind of what the goal is with kind of what we're doing with the pricing. So off the bat, this is what we have with Wheelhouse. So and then there's the graph right there. It shows pricing per week. And kind of what's cool about this system is they use a lot of data, real market data. So they're looking at houses, whether you have a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, a 3-bedroom, a 4-bedroom, it doesn't matter. They look at where your property is located, and they go based on latitude and longitude for pricing. So they look at the exact location, they look at amenities you offer, whether it's a shared pool, a private pool. They even take into consideration how far you are away from the beach. So they take all that into account, and they give us what these base prices are. And so we can choose whether to be more conservative with it. We can go with what they recommend, and we can go more aggressive. And these prices change based on what the market is doing. So like, let's say let's go to May 4th. Let's say, for example, half of the houses for some reason book tomorrow. The system sees that, it sees, hey, demand's up, and it's going to raise and adjust the price. So this base price this is not necessarily locked in. It's going to fluctuate, and it's going to fluctuate based on these kind of three simple variables that it has: conservative, recommended, or aggressive. If we go aggressive, it's going to try to, price the house a little bit higher than what market's asking for. So for owners that maybe want to get a little more aggressive, it's good for those. And I have plenty of notes, so y'all are all set up in here how you should be, but this is kind of how it works, and these are the graphs. The interesting thing to note about Wheelhouse is the delta between the weekends and the weekdays. Kind of going back to last year, I'm sure most owners can attest to this. There was a lot of weekdays in summertime that were just sitting vacant, that weren't rented, and this kind of goes back to ADRs versus occupancy. ADRs, rates for last year on weekdays in summer were just way too high than what the market was asking for. And our entire market kind of got fooled into the 2022-21 belief of every single day in summertime, is a weekend. Ask what you want, you're going to get it. It was not the case last year. There was obviously a bigger difference needed, differentiating weekdays versus weekends, including summer. So the system has that kind of pre-built in there. And this is one of Steve's units again, but this is kind of the delta. It's going to go for a higher rate on the weekend just because it's summer and Port A. That's pretty much guaranteed. There's no risk there. And then it's going to go a little softer on weekends. And the idea going forward to 24 is kind of to find a good middle ground rate, not necessarily the highest rate all the time, and not the lowest rate, but kind of a good middle ground rate to fill up your summer, get those gaps out of there, and really try to capture those weekdays that were missed. I think overall, it's going to translate to a little bit higher revenue for most owners. 25, 26 nights in June, 28 nights in summer has kind of always been the target for most homeowners. And kind of with this more aggressive approach to the weekday difference in summertime, even on, shoulder season. So like your fall and your spring, that's the idea. Then we have spring here. It also takes into account, the system takes into account like events that pop up. So like SAMFest, it knows when SAMFest is going to happen, and what it really does is it doesn't know what the event is. It knows the spike in rates and in bookings. And so it sees that once again, and it raises the price based on that. And so we have SAMFest going into Memorial Day. It's a really dynamic, really nice piece of software, and it's fully customizable. So, a lot of owners, they want to have some control. So for owners that want a minimum pricing, it has minimum pricing tools. For owners that maybe want to get more aggressive on certain months, we do have variables in here where it lets us change all this stuff. It's a very nice piece of software. So for the owner that does need or wants a little more control, we have a lot of owners out there that they're okay with the house not booking below a certain rate. They just don't want it below a certain rate, and they're happy with it sitting vacant if it doesn't. There's a lot of controls in here that give us the ability to really tailor it to owner requests as well. So if there's ever a question, or if there's ever something that y'all want to change in the system, it's never a problem. But for the most part, and I can attest to this with some houses that we had last year that did pretty well, it's always best to kind of let the system do what it needs to, have very minimal input, unless you're very adamant on having a floor rate for any point in time. The system, it moves pretty fluidly. I've watched base rates changed, and we've watched bookings come through. It seems to know the curves and demands in the market pretty well. And like, I can go back to 3 houses last year. I won't say what they are, but these houses that they didn't have any changing in rates. They just kind of ran with what the system did. A little bit of guidelines as far as what we were watching, but they did very well. The system, it's a very smart system. And again, messing with the base rate is kind of what they don't recommend. But if there's ever a ever anything you need to change as far as price goes, I would recommend doing minimum price. And I have a lot of owners that have minimum price requests, and that's never an issue and shouldn't affect too much. But it also does some pretty cool things with comp sets. They're actually coming out with a feature soon where we can actually group specific houses to specific listings. Going back to what I said earlier, you're already kind of categorized with the house in your market, but what we can do is we can actually bounce you back and forth between certain listings too. So if there's ever like we have a community out at Royal Sands, if we wanted to, we could go ahead and just grab that group of houses and have them, compare and fluctuate with those houses only. There's some pretty cool features that they have. And again, there's a lot of control that we have in this system. So it's pretty smart, pretty trick. And really it's what I want to get across on this call is just the expectation for 24. We're really going for average good bookings, but we're not going to go for the moon like everyone did last year. I also want to mention too some of the stuff with booking nights, minimum nights. There's a few national companies that Steve and I looked at this morning, just kind of seeing what the difference was with night minimums and stuff. National Company A, I won't say their name, but National Company A has a 2-night minimum in summertime right now on all their listings. Doesn't matter if it's six bedroom house or a 1-bedroom condo. They're getting they're asking 2 nights in summertime, which if you know anything about Port A, it's kind of not really what you're supposed to do, especially for a 6 or 5-bedroom house, but that's what they're doing. That's kind of the changes they made. There's another company, National Company B, what I'll call them. They're asking 4 nights in the summertime, and 3 nights on your shoulder season. So like your spring, which is typically in Port Aransas 2 nights. They're asking 3 nights there, and they're asking 4 nights here. And if we go back to some other local property managers, there's 2 others in town that are local still. We go back and look at them. They're still on the same 3 nights in summer, 2 nights everywhere else except for spring break. So spring break 3, summer 3 nights, everywhere else is 2 nights. They're still with that trend just like us. And I just wanted to mention that because that's what we're battling, especially the property manager A who's asking for 2 nights, 2 nights in summertime. It's a really competitive market. We're adjusting to it. Obviously, we're not going to give up or go anywhere near what they're doing, but that's just kind of what we're dealing with. And so we have a lot of tricks. Pricing is only half the battle. We have a lot of marketing tricks. And Steve he does this religiously every day with marketing, new Facebook posts and stuff, but we spend a lot of money on Facebook ads, on email campaigns, marketing for stuff like SamFest and Spring Break. I'm sure y'all have seen the posts come out recently on our Facebook for all these holidays. But we're really pushing that as well because it works amazing. And as most people know, Americans are more tempted to buy something if there's a discount. So for example, what we'll do is we'll say, hey, we have a coupon running right now. It's an early bird 10% off coupon for people who do book for summer. And so what we do is we mark up the house, 5-10% for some houses. So it's kind of a placebo effect. They think they're getting a deal, and it's worked wonderfully. I think half the bookings that have come through this week have actually used the coupon, but we do a lot of marketing stuff. And we have a really nice camera system we purchased recently that we're going through and doing houses with just to kind of showcase them a little bit better. We do a big push on a lot of stuff. And so with pricing, this new tool that I think is absolutely amazing, and then the marketing stuff that everyone else is doing, I think 24 is going to set up to be a really good year. And kind of, I wish I could nitpick every single category of home, but I might do a kind of recorded session going through 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s in detail. But every category of house is going to be different, and we look at it all. And so we don't ever do a blanket approach. This system isn't a blanket approach to a certain category of house. So if I took all of our 5 bedrooms that's in Wheelhouse right now, not all of them are going to be priced the same because it does take into account your amenities. It's going to take into account your location, and then obviously knowledge that we know. Whenever we set up the system, we went in and we put in, your pretty much base price that historically has been there. There's a lot of data that we have put in there as well. But every house is unique, and as we grow and as we get larger, I never want anyone to think that there's just a blanket being thrown over a category of home. Each unit is really tailor-made in this program, and it makes it easy for us to manage that. Obviously, we don't go into every single listing and customize it, but this makes it to do customizations in bulk, and then just feeding your amenities over, kind of your specifics over. And they make it really nice to do that, and it really gives you a competitive price, and it gives you the best opportunity to book. So that's pretty much Wheelhouse there.
Before you leave this page, I just have a quick question, Josh. You
Mhm.
mentioned that the minimum occupancy expected. Are you stating that LIP does not have a minimum requirement, so somebody can book in the summer one night, like on a Saturday night? Or are you saying that we do have a minimum requirement?
No, we do. What I'm saying is our minimum night requirement is the same that it's always been, which is 3 nights. So
3 nights,
summertime,
okay.
yeah, 3 nights in summer. And when I refer to property manager A and B, A is asking 2 nights in the summer, so they're letting people book for 2 nights. Then there's another one that won't let anyone book less than 4.
Okay,
So
okay.
that's what I'm
But
referring
we're
to there.
3. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, we're 3, same as it always has been.
Okay.
And so
And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing some of these national companies kind of take their programs from their base location, whether it's Florida, California, or whatever. They're like, well, we get 7 nights minimum. Well, that's actually some of the rules in parts of Florida. You can't book less than 7 nights because of governmental controls or local controls. And that's the reason why you also saw some of the average bookings were 4 point so many days, and we're always going to be about 3 to 3.1 as an average. But that's one of the things we're seeing from these national companies. They're trying to use everything they do in Florida or California or Tennessee. They're trying to make it one particular program, which we think it gives us and our owners a lot better advantage because we're reacting to our market still. And one of the things I want to point out is that what happened last year too was Beyond Pricing was a tool, we've used it before, but Beyond Pricing is a tool that loves to drive the prices down because they work off of a percentage of bookings. They get 1% of every booking for themselves. And so they really don't care that much about ADRs. They're more about let's get occupancy driven up. And one of the bigger national companies here is using Beyond Pricing, and we've never discounted July. July has always been a few percent difference for weekdays, and we've always filled it up. Well, they came in last year and threw in 35 and 40% differentials, and it's kind of changed our market. And we just have to be very careful. We don't let some of these national brands come in here and really change our market and steal the business by changing the market. So we've just got to be aware. And I think it's good to know that Josh has done a good job of watching what these other property managers are doing. We're always looking to see, but it's important that you don't have one revenue software for everybody in a market, because once you get too many people on one particular revenue market or revenue program, they'll drive the rates way down. And we're trying to guard against that. As you all know, our taxes, our insurances, and the price of the properties are not going down. We need to keep the average daily rates and protect our businesses and protect our properties, which are our businesses for a lot of you. So I just think that that's something that we should all be aware of, is that we're watching these guys to make sure that they don't drive the prices that far down.
Screenshot these somehow.
Take a picture.
Go ahead, Josh.
Oh, no, it wasn't me. I think someone accidentally unmuted. Let me see. Yeah, I thought someone else was talking. Okay, there we go. But yeah, Wheelhouse is pretty cool. And again, there's always owners that need, specific guidelines and stuff. If there's ever anything that you want in there, anything that you're adamant that be in there, it takes me 5 minutes to put it in there. Never be hesitant to ever reach out and ask for that. Never be hesitant to reach out and ask for, hey, what do my rates look like currently, for the rest of the calendar year. Pulling reports from this is easy. And obviously we've always been transparent with our owners. Anytime you need something regarding your unit, whether it's a question of how things are looking, pacing wise for your home, whether you want a comparable run for your home, making sure that your rates are kind of set where you expect them to be, it's always easy. And I always encourage anyone who has a question about it to always reach out, never be hesitant or, oh, I don't want to bother him because, maybe it takes up too much time. That's what we're here for. We have nothing but time to do all that stuff for you, especially now. So please feel free to email and reach out any questions that you ever have on this kind of stuff or customizations or anything like that. Another thing I want to mention too is I know there was there's a couple owners that have mentioned the calendar on our website not showing the prices per night. That's something that is not syncing right to the website. They've been working on it, but again, if there's ever a time where you want to see what your rates are for the rest of the calendar year, just shoot me an email, and then I can get you kind of what the price per night is currently. Again, it takes 5 minutes to do, so if you ever need that visibility, it's going to be there. And just realize as well, kind of with dynamic pricing, this does change. It changes daily. I think the max it ever changes is twice a day. If there's a lot of flow in the market, this will change every day. So like if you have a friend, if you have a business business partner, if you're just even looking at the prices for a particular day and you see it change, the following day, that's just what it's designed to do. I know some owners they get a little confused when they see it change like that, but that's just it changing, and it's going to change a lot. So, and it's a good thing. And unless you see it change somewhere like $50 a night, for a 5-bedroom home, then it's normal. So you will see fluctuations, and it's completely fine if it does that. But let me go back here. Let me see. One other part of the software I wanted to show you. And this is going to go back to some of the reporting that we can do in here. Where is it? Okay, so this is our comp set area. It's still in beta, so it doesn't fully have all the features that it needs to yet, but it basically gives us a good report of like kind of what the asking rate is for your category of home. So like if there's ever a time we need to make an adjustment to a group, we can sort by listing or by group. We have these marked in groups for like comparable homes. We can see kind of what your average asking rate is in here. A lot of smart stuff that we can just quickly glance at and get a very good piece of data from and make changes to as needed. And this is basically the asking rate for your category of home. It kind of sees what the average is. This is a 10-bedroom home. This one's a 3-bedroom home. This is kind of the average, and this is for this period of time. This isn't across the board average a year. This is for the next 30 days what your average asking is for this category of home. And another thing to kind of mention too is, software is not always right. And so we do make manual changes to all this stuff. So that's why we watch every single booking, is because we do make these manual changes. So like, I'm just going to go through the process of like how it works, because this is really what this call is for, is to give you all visibility on what we do when this kind of stuff. So let's say an owner calls, let's say Steve called tomorrow. He said, hey, I'm thinking that prices are a little too high on my weekends in summertime. I want you to lower that. Well, there's a couple ways we can actually do that in Wheelhouse. So obviously, like I said, we can adjust the base rate, and this brings everything down. So if I go back up here, you can kind of see how it moves and how it reacts. That blue line is what they suggest is the observed prices for that home. And so it has your current settings here. It has your observed prices, and then it has your recommended price. And so this is how it moves. So that's the first way we could change it. So let's say we didn't want to do that. Let's say, okay, Steve, we'll leave your prices the same right there. We're just going to adjust your seasonality. If I go here, I can leave his bases the same. So for example, let's say he only wanted to get more competitive. Let's say he wanted April brought up, 50% off of what it was. So we're going to go to April here. I'm just going to change this number. I'm just going to change that. Let me remove that. So if I wanted to really jack up the rate, I can do that just for that period of time. Doesn't touch anything else, but I can change it there. So as we see changes, as we see, shifts in market, because we use another software called Key Data. This is key data right here. We pull reports from this, and Steve's religious about pulling reports from that all the time. If we pull some data that suggests we need to get a little bit more aggressive with pricing, like in this case for April, we can make those changes right there and really hone in that month. And it's really the same for day of week too. There's day of week rules that we can do right here. So if we wanted to really get aggressive on weekdays only, we can put in a bump or a percentage increase or percentage decrease for certain periods of time. And so I just want, let's say I want Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday marked at 50%. You can see the curve right there, kind of brings them up to, at this point where weekend prices would be. So if we see that weekdays all of a sudden are in popular demand and we need to get prices a little higher, we make those individual changes without affecting the rest of the dates. So it's very fine-tuned stuff we can do with that. And then last thing I'll show y'all with these kind of changes is, well, two things. Demand sensitivity. This basically is a control on how sensitive pricing is to what the market's asking. So let's say we didn't want to follow what the market was doing. Let's say, okay, we think we should be at least half of what they're doing. Let's just change about half of how they're changing. So I just go here, I can just change this. I'm just going to go 50%. And then it has that flux with the market, but the prices kind of stay at a more flat, more neutral level. So if there is an owner, if anyone that says, hey, I want to be really competitive this year, I want to get aggressive, I want to follow the market and have the dynamic fluctuations, but I don't want to get too wild with how the market currently is, because I don't think that's what it should be, then we can make these changes right here. And so again, it keeps that dynamic fluctuation between weekdays, weekends, but it's a little softer in how it actually does things. And again, there's rule-based, so that's a complete control that we have, and they also have, as well as the base price here, they have conservative and aggressive settings. Recommended seems to be the best across the board, so that's what we have most listings at, is this recommended right here. And then obviously we have minimum prices, and I talked about this. Owners that do have a minimum price or don't want to go below a certain price, there's that control here. So it's just literally when you send an email and you ask for that change, that's all I do. I go here, minimum price change, save it, and then it's done. And it won't go below that point ever throughout the entire year. So for owners that really do want to set a hard lock, have a hard floor rate, that's all it takes right there. I'm just going to change that back to 99. But let's say you wanted to have a floor rate, but you didn't necessarily want it to be all year. We have date specific rules. And that just tells us right now, hey, let's just have that base from, April to April 3rd to the 10th. We can really dial it in if that's what you want, if that's what you need to do, depending on how you want it. We have time-based rules too, so we can set these to adjust, and then we can have them expire. So like if for some reason you say, hey, the next 30 days, I want to be really aggressive with my prices, we'll see how it goes. After that point, then I want you to drop it off. Instead of us making a sticky note and having to remember to do it, we just set that kind of time-based rule there. Then it'll auto kick it off at the end. Again, these are very advanced controls. For most owners, I don't ever recommend kind of going into these details, but for owners that do kind of need that level of control, for whatever reason, it is there. And so we can really dial this in and fine tune it for you. We also have a tool for maximum prices. This probably will never ever be used, but if for some reason you don't ever want to go above a certain price, there is this field too. So we can, if you never want to go above $300, there's only one person I know of that probably would ever use this, but we have that tool in there as well. Again, it won't ever be used, but it's there should someone need it. And then there's a couple owners that do opt out of dynamic pricing. It's completely fine if you do opt out of it. It's not set in stone if you want it. For those owners, we go back to Streamline. So Wheelhouse is completely disconnected from those homes. So if you are an owner that doesn't have dynamic pricing turned on, there's quite a few. Your changes are actually made in Streamline on our pricing tape chart. And so just so that way y'all know how it looks. Again, I'm just going to go to Steve's unit. This is how it would look. We basically plug in the rates per day for the entire calendar year, and then that's what they're at, and that's what they're locked to. Because like I said, there's a couple owners that do have that. So if you are an owner that was ever curious to how that works, and you are in that, that's what it would look like. Is we set your rate here, and then that's what the rate's at. It never changes, doesn't go up, it doesn't go down. The only time it would change is if we change it, or in all cases you request it to be changed. So for those owners, that's where that actually lives for it. And it just follows the entire year. So, and it just stays locked at whatever value's in there. So if that was 200, stay locked there. It's just not going to change from that. But 95% of our homes are on dynamic pricing. So that's kind of a little class on how it works, kind of a pull behind the curtain on what Wheelhouse is. And anytime we have a change, that's what it would look like. So
Josh, I have a quick question.
yes, sir.
So Wheelhouse is a new system for 2024.
Correct.
In a macro sense, is this also a revenue-driven software versus, I think Steve mentioned in the past, you had a occupancy-driven software?
Yeah, I mean, out of the gate, it's revenue driven. And it's really however you want it to be. You can have it be revenue driven. Like I said, if you go on this more aggressive setting, then you kind of mark up some weekends or weekdays. You can have it be a really aggressive revenue driven piece of software. But it can also be the reverse. It can be a very aggressive, I want occupancy kind of software. It's really whatever you make it to be. And how we have it right now set is an average. So, and just out of the gate, what we've done is spring and fall, our shoulder months, those are priced more aggressively. Summer, for the most part, is priced how it's always been. We're not really getting too aggressive apart from weekdays there. So it's really whatever you make it to be at the end of the day, but we have it kind of in a balanced state right now.
And the comps are beyond just Life in Paradise clients. They're
correct. Yeah, it's Wheelhouse compares it doesn't just compare to our listings, it compares to everything. So on top, what it does is it does pull scrape data from Airbnb and Vrbo. So it looks at all the listings on Airbnb and Vrbo. It kind of scrapes what their nightly rates are. But they do also have the ability to pull what booked rates were. And again, it goes down to the latitude and longitude of the house. So for example, Aransas Harbors, let's say 5 of the condos in that complex booked for all of a sudden tomorrow, it's going to see that spike in demand and it's going to shift it, and it only looks at those. It's not looking at it's not going to be looking at a condo that's beachfront. It looks at those, and it looks at everything. So whether it's someone with a different property manager, whether it's someone who's self-renting, it pulls all that data and it looks at all of that.
Okay, so it's more pound for pound type.
Yeah. And
does any of this, I mean, Steve, this factors into something you talked about last year's. Demand is one thing, but supply increased in 2023, and it's going to probably increase again in 2024. So how does the increase in supply affect a system like this?
Well, I think, from what I can see is it's always going to look at what the market is at a given time. And it's trying to find that balance between occupancy and ADR, regardless if the market goes way up in inventory. The good thing is right now, we're not seeing a huge climb. We're seeing, from what I can see, a lot of the builders are kind of backing off, and I think rightfully so, because I looked yesterday, there's almost 300 properties sitting for sale in Port Aransas, and the average time on the market has grown quite a bit. So we're not seeing quite as many people jumping in, but we are seeing a lot of people, because of the taxes and the insurances going up, making a decision to start renting their property where they maybe didn't do that in the past. So that's increasing, but at the end of the day, I don't think we're going to see anywhere near the increase in inventory this coming year that we've seen in the last 2, 3, 4 years. But back to your question is, it really just doesn't pay attention to the inventory level. It just says, look, I am looking to get the best booking at the best price. And so it's gonna go to wherever it goes. And of course, if the market gets saturated, or there's just 500 more properties drop in here, then obviously those rates are probably going to start dropping, unless, and the bright side of it too is, and I look at a lot of different data everywhere, but some of the biggest markets are are growing in population are Austin, San Antonio, Houston, Dallas. And the best part about that is our best markets are Austin, San
Right.
Antonio, Dallas, and Houston. So we're getting a lot more people, a bigger audience, so we can withstand a lot of this. And the other part is we're a drive-to destination. And a drive-to destination means that we're going to get a lot of last minutes. A lot of people go, well, let's just go to Port A. Look at the weather. And that's what I tell people last year too, is in our March and April timeframe, the weather guys in San Antonio and Austin, they killed us. They love to go, yep, it's going to rain. It's 80% chance of rain in Port Aransas. Well, the part of the story they didn't tell was it's going to rain for 20 minutes and then it's going to be sunshine for the rest of the weekend. And that's brutal. If I could just convince them not to even talk about Port Aransas, we'd be better off, because it does kill our last minute bookings when people are coming in, they see a forecast of 80% chance of rain. They're like, well, I don't want to spend the money to go down there and watch it rain. But that's what works in the springtime. Weather is driving a lot of rentals because people, they know in the summer it's going to be hot. They just know it, and it's not going to rain much. But in spring, we just don't know. And fall is more of a given than spring here as well. We typically know it's going to be hot in September. October is going to start getting a little bit nicer, and November is even nicer. We typically don't get real cold until, December for the most part. So I think at the end of the day, this software gives us the best chance. And we looked at 4 different there's about 7 in this market that work with this particular software and do some of the things similar, but these guys tend to be the leaders, and a lot of the bigger players work with these guys. None of these guys are cheap, let me tell you. It's either that or a crystal ball, and I think this is much better than a crystal ball. And but it's well worth it, and it does take some a learning process to understand exactly what it's trying to do for you.
I have a question, and my name's Pat Kaufman, brand new to LIP. Total number of rentable units in 2021, 22, and 23. You happen to have a rough estimate as what those 3 numbers would be?
And I'm on the HOT, or the Hotel Occupancy Taxation Board here in Port Aransas, and our job is to try to help spend the tax money, the hotel occupancy tax money. And that is a question that is brought up a lot. And back before Harvey in 2017, there was roughly 1,700 properties that were registered STRs in the city limits of Port Aransas. The guesstimate today is roughly around 2,800. I tend to believe there's probably a little closer to 3,000. That's just what's registered with the city. And it has grown from 2017 probably by around 1,300, and it's probably equal number each year. 18 wasn't probably a big year. 19, when everybody started rebuilding, that came up quick. 20 came up quick, and then in 20 and 21, when we had the situation with COVID that caused people to flee, and that's one of the things that a lot of people didn't realize too, is the COVID situation condensed the inventory, because a lot of owners that had a second property, instead of sitting in Austin, San Antonio, Dallas, or wherever they might be, and having to deal with the COVID situation, they said, well, let's just go to Port Aransas. We can at least go to the beach. We can do whatever. So that took a lot of properties off the inventory list. And by condensing the inventory, that kind of hurt the numbers of properties being rented there in 21 specifically. But those numbers have continued to grow. But I really believe that there are still quite a bit of permits out there. But I think what you're seeing, these developers are going to have to slow down, because if they don't have buyers and the cash buyers are drying up, and then like I mentioned earlier, there's close to 300 properties for sale in Port Aransas today, which is a a crazy number for us.
And of that 300, I don't mean to overanalyze this.
Sure.
Of the 300 for sale today, how many of those are new units, newly constructed and never lived in yet? You know?
I would tend to believe, and I'd have to glance at it, but I don't think it's a lot. I think that they typically, I'm assuming they're on the MLS listings, but a lot of them aren't finished. But I do know, like, you go down the street here on Avenue G, this development, I don't even know how many units are in there, right down from the beach. But they're all nice units, $1 million a piece, 3 bedrooms, I think is what they are. They got one sold. And so that obviously, until they start selling more, this developer is not going to be really quick to go build a lot more. And so I don't know what that number is, but I would tend to believe that's more resale than it is new.
You mentioned this earlier. Do you know what the number of turn days is now?
Number of what now?
Turn days, how long a house is on the market?
Oh, I just looked at it. It was, I think the average is, I tell you what, I'll look at my email because I have it here. I was looking at that today, and I'll pop back in and let you know what that number is.
Okay. But I do have some stuff here, some like trends and stuff to just keep in mind going into 24. This is just overall market stuff. This isn't Port Aransas specific necessarily. But this is just some things that people should keep in mind. So in Q1, just across the board revenue, ADRs are pacing slightly behind at 12% across the board. But the entire nation is up 2% in occupancy. So just something to keep in mind there. Then going back to supply growth, they say across the board in the market for the United States, they're expecting about 10% growth this year compared to 20% for 23. And again, that's US, that's not Port Aransas specific. So there is going to be a slow in supply, but they are projecting about a 10% growth. This kind of goes back to kind of what you were asking. Another thing they say is travelers are across the board looking for less luxury properties. It looks like middle class in particular, where you have a lot of credit card debt and credit card consumer debt. I read a report; it's at an all-time high for that for the middle class traveler. Those people are looking for less luxury properties, and they're looking for more affordable but unique experiences. So they're looking for like the boutique, maybe not as large property just to kind of visit, maybe that offers a little bit unique experience. Luckily, we do have our beach gear programs and all that stuff with most of our houses, so that kind of helps there. But looks like across the board, the middle class in particular is looking for less luxury, kind of smaller. They're looking for smaller homes. But then they counter that saying that travelers with higher income brackets, they're going to travel just as much as they always have, obviously. But those groups are going to be booking, if booking trends are going to be like 23, that group of renter is going to be booking closer to stays, not necessarily as far out. So for all owners, I would say expect most of your summer to come sometime between April and then Memorial Day. That's usually when we start the heavy turn of bookings for summer. And then this kind of goes into hotels. This doesn't necessarily affect us, maybe some of the smaller condos, but hotels are expecting a heavier decline than what we saw in 23. So unless you own an efficiency condo, perhaps I wouldn't expect this to affect you too much in terms of that note there that they mention.
So I did find that report that I was looking at, the market update. Active listings are up 69%, like 287, I think is what it shows. Days on the market is 96. And then they give days to close is 63, so total is 159 days. Excuse me. And they talk about there's 9.9 months of inventory on the books today, and then there's the number of closed sales is down 45%. So I think it's, you know, but the one thing that's, you know, that's up is the medium price of a property in Port Aransas is up 25%, which most of us can look at our tax bill and see it's up to $1,023,500 is the median price of a house in Port Aransas versus Padre, which is $465,000. Some kind of crazy numbers, but that was the report that they put out from the Texas Realtors.
Just an FYI, I believe Austin kind of mirrors what you just said as
I
far as
believe it.
turn days go.
I believe it.
Which Austin's gone from a negative number to 90 days now. So
Yeah.
just an FYI.
And their market prices are growing kind of like ours are too, that's for sure.
And that's really all the notes I had here. I do want to, let me just stop sharing there. Get back to Zoom here.
Can we spend a little bit of time talking about marketing? What I think there was mention either on correspondence or Facebook, something about what we were doing from a different perspective of a marketing strategy. This is a two-prong thing, or three-prong, I should say. My first question is, what are we doing different? Second part of the question is, how does Life in Paradise decide how it's going to market properties? Like, I haven't necessarily seen my property marketed, but I know there's lots of properties. I'm interested to see how is the rotation of how do we market? And the third prong to that statement, I saw that Port Aransas posted that they had been acknowledged or recognized as a travel destination in Europe or something like that. Like for the first time it was rated or they advertised it. Are we able to market off of that or play off of that? So sorry, multiple layers.
Sure, no worries. So some of the things we do on marketing, we've teamed up with a company called Blue Tent on email marketing. And so we actually, right now we have two different property groups that are in this campaign. One is Sunflower, which is kind of separate by itself, and we're doing campaigns for them. We also have our others, and we're looking at trying to drive down to some other segments that are very large for us, whether it's a condominium complex. You know, we have 80 units at Island Retreat, and some of those things we're looking at. But what we do on those particular campaigns is we create, and those can be targeted specifically at particular audiences. For instance, Blue Tent is able, and they're owned by the same company that owns our Streamline software. They have the ability to use our system and go in and say, hey, let's look at everybody that's booked for SandFest and let's go after them hard and heavy and get them to come, give them a promotion. And we're running a promotion on SandFest right now where we're giving away until the end of this month. They're going to get entry tickets for SandFest, 2 adults and 2 children for any booking they do between now and the 31st. And then we're also giving away a promotion where they get VIP tickets on a drawing basis. So and we can see and we measure, and I looked at key data to see how we're doing against the other properties in Port Aransas, and we're trending, 6, 7, 8% ahead. So maybe that's a measurable, and as most of you know, it's so hard to measure what marketing successes are there. But we look at those bookings and we see they use those coupons or whatever. And so we can see that those particular email campaigns, whether it was a Facebook campaign or Instagram or whatever, it's having some effect. And so we're wanting to make sure, especially like things like SandFest, we don't want to see another year like last year where the whole city just didn't book and everybody stood around and looked at each other and go, what happened? Because we always book SandFest. So we do those things and we pick and choose. And I don't want to say that it's the squeaky wheel gets the grease process, but sometimes it really is that. But we look at everything and we try to market to condos, houses, doesn't matter. We're trying to drop them away from the OTAs like Airbnb and Vrbo to our website and choosing a property that fits them. And then we typically, if you look at the bottom of our page, there's featured properties that rotates every time you open that page. It changes which is a featured property. Every one of our properties are a featured property. So sooner or later, somebody's going to see yours come up as a featured property. We do a lot of Google ads, our Google ad campaign. Typically, we've upped our number of dollars, $7,000 to $8,000 a month, which I'm just going to tell you, it is so hard to compete with the Airbnbs, the Verbos of the world, and the Booking.coms because they're spending millions. But on our local market, we've done a good job of driving a lot of business to our website by using these Google ads. That's one of the things that we decided this year. Almost everybody turns off their Google ads and their Bing ads and all that in the November, December, and kind of January. I raised ours. I said, this is not going to be the same as last year. We're going to do it, and Josh knows, we're going to do everything. I've told him we're going to do everything we can. We're not going to be considered insane, or what do they say about insanity, is doing the same thing over again and expect a different result. We're trying to drive the market and drive differences in the market. So we're doing different things. And so by increasing that, we really jumped up on Bing. We hadn't been marketing that much on Bing, but there's so many people that still utilize Microsoft as a search engine. So it's showing some promise for us. But we do some retargeting too. We have cart abandonment. So if, let's say, somebody's looking at your property and they start to book it, and then they go, let me take a look at some other ones, well, that becomes an abandoned cart. They get like 3 emails, and the third email is going to be a coupon that says, hey, here, we'll give you a few extra dollars to come back, and so we retrieve, it's $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 some months on cart abandonment. So we're going back after them. But back to the Blue Tent email campaign, we can hone in on a lot of different places, and whether it's a time and date or a particular property group, that this group is always gone for a private pool. We're going to put private pool properties in front of them because we're really wanting to use a rifle approach to drill down, instead of showing them, somebody that's always booked a private property, 5-6 bedroom. We don't want to show them a 1-bedroom condo, but we're doing a lot more smarter things in our campaigns, and we have one young lady in our group. She's doing. I hate to say I'm not a TikTok fan, I guess, but she's done some stuff on TikTok, and it's getting some notice. And so she's doing little videos of tours of the homes and things like that. So as we, get around, we're doing as much as we can and as we grow, we just keep putting more money into marketing to make sure we're still spending something percentage wise in equivalent to our growth. And I think it's showing, because if you were to look at what we get direct off of our website, it's over twice what it was 5 years ago. And what I mean is, we relied on Vrbo immensely 5 years ago. Airbnb's never been a big thing for Port Aransas. Most of the people come to Port Aransas, they're Vrbo type people. And so our direct bookings has pretty much doubled, and we pull in not quite 50%, but if you add our phone people and all that stuff, we're well over 50% of our traffic. It's up around 60-something% of our traffic comes from within. And Vrbo is down around 30-something%. Airbnb is about 12, and then they drop off from there. I hope that answers your question about marketing. The one thing about the European thing, I didn't know a whole lot about that particular one. I work with Brett Stewart here in the Port Aransas Chamber on a lot of different things, but I honestly didn't know about that. I knew that Port Aransas as a group, we've teamed up with the Dallas Cowboys to become the official vacation spot for them. that was there was a lot of local noise about that. But
Well, heck, maybe that's what I'm confusing. You know, the Cowboys are so European. I
Mhm.
don't think so.
but yeah, but that actually, you know, I don't jump on Facebook to say a lot, but I do read what people's comments are, and I found it kind of funny that everybody goes, yeah, just what we need, more people to Port Aransas. And to be honest, we've become what we feel is a very good citizen, even though we're an STR managing company, and we're not real STRs are not the most popular business in Port Aransas. That's to say, I don't to say the least. But we jump in and try to help everywhere we can. We have our own security company. We do things that nobody else will do, and it's proven to work really well for us, where people don't jump on Life in Paradise like I've seen them jump on some other property management companies for leaving a trash can out. We get a buy, but just because I think we donate a lot of money to the local causes that's important to these locals. And you know, we as a company have to work well with these locals, you know, even though they really just don't like short-term rentals. And I think it's been a good move on our part. It feels good to do things right for the city and not just think it's all about let's get more and more and more and have the locals be mad. I think we want to, you know, live in harmony with that group, and I think we've done a good job. And it's going to be interesting. And I keep going back to some of these national brands because they have no investment in our community. They really don't care, and I think that it's going to show up in the long run that they don't care.
Steve, a quick question on marketing. Do you all ever focus emails back to previous customers to try to
Oh, yeah.
repeat business?
Yep. And that's part of that blue tent piece. And we do still use Constant Contact, where I think right now we have well over 40,000 people on our list. And so we retarget them. What we try to refrain from, and there's people like, you know, V-Trip Silver Sands that I get a marketing piece from them almost every 2 or 3 days. And eventually that's what happens, I think, is people just, I don't want to see that, or they don't even pay attention to it. It's just another, let me delete that email. It's getting bothersome, because that's the way it is for me when I get the same email over and over again. And so we try to stay at least, you know, around every 10 days to, you know, every week we'll do some, but we try to vary it so we don't get that unsubscribe from people that we really want to stay in touch with.
Okay, thank you.
No. Then to answer the kind of one of the questions Christina had, anytime you see a Facebook ad on LIP's Facebook that's a specific unit, it's pretty much always an owner request type deal. So owners do request it in, and anytime you see just a unit by itself alone being pushed, it's because an owner requested that, is what it is.
A lot of times it's a new unit is what we do. So, and it varies, but we're happy to do those. And we've got 3 or 4 people that are doing marketing in different parts for us. So we have more and more people to do that. And we've got a lot of young people that are better at that stuff than some old person like myself trying to do it. I understand it. I'm a computer guy, but maybe I'm missing some of the trends too.
Yeah.
Well, and one follow-up question is kind of, Josh, one of your statements, but like the customers are going to be more cost conscious this year. In your system, can you do things like some of the other industries, not with this, where it's like, if you get 4 nights, the 5th night is half price, or something to where it almost encourages people to add on, or it's a discounted on the backside.
Yeah.
So it looks like a discount, or it feels like a discount, but it's still really, it's making them spend more.
Yeah. we have those variables like in Streamline, for example, we can set it up. We can even do coupons as well, auto apply coupons, but we do have the ability to set up, hey, if they stay, 3 nights, then that fourth night is a percentage off, or that fourth night is completely free. We do have the ability to do all that stuff.
Okay.
That used to be a very common practice way back in the even back in the mid 90s and into the 2000s. There was a lot of marketing, and this is back when I helped my mom do it. Is we would have, you book 7 nights, you get 1 free. But as things progressed and the software pieces progressed, it seemed like that wasn't a big draw for them, and so having these different prices per night tends to take the place of those. So whether, Friday, Saturday night's going to be a peak number at such and such, and then Monday, Tuesday, they're going to start winding down a little bit. And when you aggregate these particular or summarize and average these particular rates, it becomes a very good deal versus they saw just what one did. We even had the ability last year, and we never did pull a trigger on it, and they kept pushing us to try it, was to offer a 2-night booking at the price of 3. And it's kind of opposite of what you just mentioned, David, but it was a way to say, hey, we have 2-night bookings for some of the people that want 2-night bookings. But if you want it, you're going to pay for 3 nights. And just to be honest, what this one company that Josh mentioned that's going to 2 nights, they're going to kill themselves, because what they don't realize is their housekeeping crew will not be able to keep up with 2-night bookings full time in the summer. It's just, you get these 5 bedrooms, 6 bedrooms, even 3 of them 4s, and you got these things every 2 nights, you're turning them over. Your laundry crew won't keep up. Your housekeeping crew won't keep up. Your ability to do an efficient job is going to really fall off fast. It would be beautiful if we could go to a 4 and 5 night minimum in Port Aransas, but it's just not the market.
Mm-mm.
But that's one of the reasons why. And again, when you start running into a lot more gaps when you do go to 2 nights in the summer, it works well for small condominiums. We found that it works pretty well there, but when you're talking about big houses, it just doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, and it doesn't, and kind of going back to that one company too, their pricing, at least for them, is also all over the place. I mean, 2 of the same house were never priced what you'd expect them to be. A 3-bedroom house, for example, looked at 4th of July, it was priced at roughly about $300 a night, which, if you know 4th of July for a 3-bedroom house, it's kind of low asking for right now. Then you go to an identical house on their site, and it was twice as much. So pricing was kind of all over the place as well. And again, that kind of goes back to a bunch of the other national companies here that are bringing kind of what they have in their systems and kind of their knowledge to this market that's just not going to work, and that we're watching and just analyzing to make sure we can react to it if we need to. But for the most part, there's 2 other property managers in Port Aransas still that are local, just like us, and their pricing and their structures, the way they have their night minimum set, theirs is on par with ours, the way it's always been. And I think that's really where we should be, truly. But we're almost out of time here. So like I said, there's going to be a recorded session sent out to every owner. And then obviously y'all can come back through it, see kind of what you want to recap on. But kind of on a personal note, I do want to thank every owner for coming on here and kind of letting me show all y'all everything. I came from my background is before I came to LIP a little over 3 years ago, I worked at a Marriott in Kentucky, and then COVID happened, and I got laid off. My family luckily worked down here, and so she told my mom, Jennifer Murphy, who you've probably talked to, who works in accounting with Jennifer Geo. She told me about this place, and I basically came down, walked into Steve's office, said, "Hey, can I have a job?" He said, "Yeah, sure, you're hired," and shook his hand. And what was supposed to truly be a kind of a part-time thing until things opened in Kentucky became a kind of passion and love affair. And I really enjoy talking to each and every one of the owners that I do. And like I said, I have over 300 contacts in my phone dedicated to owners, and Steve and the whole team here has been really, I mean, they saved my life for the most part, and I'm very, very, very grateful to do what we do. And just know there's a lot of passion and love going into what we do every single day that we're here. So I just wanted to mention that. But if there's any questions that anyone has, feel free to shoot me an email, call. Just let us know. We're always here reachable. And then if you do want to maybe set up a call to go over some of the customization tools that we showed in Wheelhouse, you're more than welcome to do that as well. So
Thank you both for your time and transparency. And then Josh, I know you were a little anxious about presenting. As somebody who's a sales professional for a very long time, you did pretty good. So don't doubt
you.
yourself.
I think my Apple Watch, the heart rate above 120 ticked off about 3 times during this call, if I'm being quite honest with you.
Well, you
So,
did good. You knew the numbers. That's really it. It's the
Yeah.
data driven. And so you were just letting us know. So we appreciate your transparency. We are new to Life in Paradise. We switched property managers with Sunflower Beach, as you both know, in a crazy transition last year. So we're looking forward to this year, a solid year under our belt with you. And we look forward to partnering with you and whatever we can do to support that. So thank you both for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we do appreciate everybody. And Josh is right. It's hard to even get him out of the building anymore. He's here almost every single day. I have to force him to take off, but he understands it. And you can always tell when somebody has a passion for something, they tend to do it well, and they tend to, it shows, and it definitely does. And we have a good group of people that, we're proud of, and and we're really proud of the owner group that we have, and we appreciate the partnership. And anytime we like to answer the phone, and we like to talk, and anything we can answer, we're more than happy to do it. But we do really appreciate everybody jumping on today. And again, anything we can answer, just let us know.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank y'all. Y'all have a great day.